Hello, Rob here, and in this supplementary video I'm going to be talking about some of the changes that have been necessitated by the COVID-19 situation. So if you came into college for the support sessions just before half term, you'll know this already, but for those who didn't, these are the changes that have happened. Now when it comes to component 2, I have made an executive decision not to do Fallen Angels, but instead to do Pulp Fiction. This is because I'm worried about the fact that I might not get an opportunity to be able to show you the films in class. Even if we are all back in college in September, which it looks like we're likely to be, I want to be spending as much of my time in class doing project work as much as possible. So I want to try and make sure that watching the films and doing all the learning about these movies is done as much as possible outside of class via flipped learning and via what they call blended learning, in which we will be doing I will be doing support sessions and delivering material via Microsoft Teams sessions. Okay, so I've decided not to do Fallen Angels purely because it's almost impossible to get hold of. Yes, there are copies of it in the LRC you can borrow, but only a handful of them. Pulp Fiction, on the other hand, is easy to get hold of. It's available on DVD for as little as £5.99, or you could stream it, as a pay-per-view, rental, or you can buy a digital copy. However you get hold of a copy, you might even already have a copy. I don't care. It just makes it easy to get hold of. Okay, so whilst it's not particularly experimental as Fallen Angels is, doesn't matter. This is about practicality. So that's the first executive decision I've made. To which end, I would like you to try and watch as many of the Component 2 films as you can over half term. Okay? Now, I'm not expecting you to go out and buy any of these movies. Alright? There will be copies available in the LRC for you to borrow when we get back to college. But I'd recommend you buy them anyway. Okay, I mean, they're not very expensive. It's better to have them than not have them. If you don't want to keep them, you could always sell them the next year's, second year's, or first year's. Okay, some of these films like Vertigo, La La Land, and Captain Fantastic are all available on Netflix anyway, so you don't have to pay for those. But the ones I particularly want you to watch are Mustang and Stories We Tell, both of which are available on Mubi. So you're going to need to sign up to Mubi, which is free if you're a film student. So sign up to Mubi and watch those two films. They're both available not in the main catalogue. You've got to go to the library section, which you didn't used to be able to do on the app, but I think you can now. If you can't get that onto them on the app, then you'll need to use the desktop browser version, which is what you used to have to do. But I think they're available on the app now. Okay. Anyway, they're free, as long as along with a bunch of other films, like some of the short films that we have to study, like Missions in the Afternoon. That's available on Mubi as well. Okay. The other films like Taxi Tehran and Pulp Fiction, they're only available either via the LRC or you can buy them, as I said. But hopefully I'll get a chance to show them in class. I don't know. We'll see. Who knows what COVID-19 is going to do between now and then, right? I've also put on there where you can get all of the first year films, some of which you can see as cheap as chips, £3.26, right? The other ones aren't particularly expensive either, but it's a good idea to have copies of these so you can watch them multiple times. Okay? Any questions about that? Let me know. But watch Mustang and Stories We Tell. Plus, Mubi's got a brilliant catalogue of superb movies. Watch as many as you can. I am. Right, now let's consider the short film section. Right, the project work. Now, the options were these. You could either do a 4 to 5 minute short film or a screenplay for a short film which is 1,600 or 1,800 words long. To go with that, there would be a written evaluation of between 1,600 and 1,800 words long. As you can see, the main product's worth 40, the evaluative analysis is worth 20. My concern here is that shooting a short film is going to be extremely difficult, if not impossible, if we have to continue to social distance. Now, this might be a bit disappointing if you had your heart set on making a short film. We don't know what the situation is right now. You may get a chance to make one, right? But with a short film, that's difficult. But with a screenplay, well, that's just a Word document, right? So I'm suggesting that everyone does a screenplay. Now, you could then later on turn that screenplay into a film. Or alternatively, you can do an entirely different short film. But it's better to have a screenplay and not need it than to need a screenplay and not have it. Okay? We'll worry about the written evaluation later. Now, the latest information I've got, which will probably be out of date by the time you watch this, but they are the exam, well, Ofqual, who are in charge of, this is the Office of Qualifications, they're in charge of designing A-levels. They have put out a proposal for what we can do with the project work. Now, I suggest you pause this and read it yourself. I'm not going to read it. Right, if you've done that, to summarise that, I don't know what they really mean by prototype or mock-up, but reading between the lines where it says non-original, original or non-original photographs, image drawings and sketches, I'm suggesting that means that if you can't photograph your storyboard because of the COVID-19 distance, social distancing rules, you can draw it instead, or you can take images of the internet. We haven't had any further guidance on this yet, so I don't know. Right? This is just what I know at the moment. Just to remind you that this project is marked at a 60, it represents 30% of your A level, 20% that's in the production, and 10% of that's in your evaluation. The evaluation has to be done in class under timed conditions, sort of like an exam. Right, you've got to hand in your production, that's your screenplay or short film if you get a chance to do one, the evaluative analysis to go with it, and you've got to have a cover sheet. Right, that cover sheet has got things like, written permissions on it and lists all the short films you watch for analysis and that kind of stuff. We'll worry about that when we get back to class. Let's get into the storyboard option, which is for the storyboard and the screenplay, right? For the storyboard option, the individual learner must be responsible for the photography. That means you have to take the photographs, and if you edit the photographs, you have to be in charge of editing them. Okay? As I said, that might be impractical or impossible. With social distancing, might be able to draw them, but if you're going to draw them, you have to draw them. It does say something about found images, but we'll wait until we get more feedback on that. Unassessed participants may act in or appear in the storyboard photographs. Their performance skills will not be assessed. Remember, because you have to be responsible for photography, you can't be in your storyboard photographs. It says the storyboard shots are indicative and the quality of the images is not assessed. This is not a photography course, but having said that, it says the storyboard shots must represent the shots they describe, so they must be properly framed, they must be in focus, they must have made some attempts to create, correct mise-en-scène, the appropriate locations. Your images have to be, they can't properly exposed and all this kind of stuff, right? But as I said, this is not a photography course. You're not being marked on that. But I want them to be competent. You can digitally manipulate your images. So it says, while digital photographed images need only be indicative, learners may Photoshop the backgrounds, but it's not assessed. So you won't get extra marks for doing this. You won't lose marks for not doing it. But, you can do it to make it look better. You can use up to 5 found shots with digitally photographed images will not be possible. Those shots have to be credited where you found them from. These, as far as I know, will not count towards your 20 total. So if you're going to use 5 found shots, you have to do 25 images. I would avoid this, though, at all possible costs, because it says it's recommended that learners use copyright-free material where possible and plan genre-based extracts where they don't rely on shots impossible to film or other examples of found footage. So it's better to take to do your storyboard without having to rely on those kind of things. So the production brief, in this case, we're looking at the screenplay and storyboard, is for a screenplay or for a short film between 1,600 and 1,800 words. Now, whether you're doing a short film or a screenplay, it has to follow one of these, like, production brief narrative elements, right? So it's got to have one of these: a narrative twist, a narrative that begins with an enigma, a narrative that establishes and develops a single character, and a narrative that portrays conflict between two central characters. All right? It can have more than one of those, but one of them has to be what you're focusing on. You also have to do an evaluative analysis. I'm not going to go through this. You can pause it and read it yourself. Right, good. You've done that. But just to bear in mind that, as I said, your short film's got to be influenced by the short films you've analysed from that official list you've been given. So I would, before you start writing your screenplay, consider what short films have influenced it and how they've influenced it. Specifically in terms of narrative, remember, because that's what screenplay is about, basically. So think about the narrative structure. Go and do some research into narrative theories. I put an entire playlist on YouTube about them. Remember, of course, that, while short films can be more like poems, whereas, feature films are more narrative-based, if you were doing a short film, we're expecting you to be doing it as a more visual. But if you're doing a screenplay, you have to consider the narrative structure and tell your story via the dialogue, but without resulting to too much in the way of exposition. All right. Consider your cinematic influences. Now, in this case, it means you should be influenced by other screenplays. All right. Now, I have put on Moodle the screenplay, well, everyone I can find anyway, the screenplays of all of the films that are on the syllabus, whether we are studying them or not. So I'll put as many as I can on there. They're all from the first year, because nearly all the films from the second year are in a foreign language. So go and have a look at them and read those. I'd recommend the La La Land one in particular is very good. Right? It's very well written. So think about how you're going to create meaning and effect. All right. Now this is through the use of language, right? What I particularly like about the La La Land screenplay is the way it is both very concise in its language. There's no waffle, there's no padding. But the language it uses is not just concise, but very evocative as well. All right. It's concise, it's economical, but it conjures up a vivid image in your brain as you're reading it. It's a very well written screenplay. See, the film sucked. So, think about that. I couldn't find any of the screenplays for the short films, by the way. I looked everywhere, couldn't find them. Alright? But, think about the way in which those short films that you might have looked at have used dialogue to tell the story. Okay? When you do your evaluation, you can use, well, you should use screenshots of screenplay extracts in your analysis, and you put your screenplay next to a real screenplay for comparison. Now, I've put all the templates you need on Moodle. Okay, there are also videos in this like a playlist showing you how to use the Word document screenplay template. There are instructions on that as well. I've already sent you instructions on how to do the screenplay. All that's on Moodle as well. Okay, so read the resources I've sent you, watch the videos, and just have a crack at it. Read as many screenplays as you can. Try to make yours interesting. Right? Avoid filler dialogue like, "Hello, how are you? I'm fine, thank you. Oh, I'm well. How have you been doing?" Don't care. Keep it out there. Also, avoid exposition. It's clunky. Right? Sort of organically get that information across within the dialogue in a natural kind of way. All right. Now, you may have already, if you're going to do the short film, done the research and planning for your short film. Okay. Sorry, but you're going to have to redo some for your screenplay too. All right. So, basically, get it on your blog, notes on bits of scripts you've read, bits of language you think are really good, character and narrative ideas, you know, the bit about cinematography, music, editing and sound. Doesn't really matter. But you could go and research storyboards and see how they use those elements, right? And think about effective screenplay techniques. I put bucket loads of videos in this playlist, and I've already sent you links to other websites. Okay? Right. Sorry about all this, but world events have overtaken us, I'm afraid. And it's better to have a screenplay and not need one than to need a screenplay and not have one. Hopefully we'll get a chance to be able to do a short film in the future. Maybe not though. Okay? If you've got any questions, you know where I am. Just drop me an email and I will get back to you. Okay? See you soon, hopefully.